Well, welcome to Wednesday. I cannot hear myself, honey.
You can't at all, huh?
No. So could you? I could
You
hear
wanna go
myself.
up a little bit more? There you go.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's it. So, Mark, we've had some technical difficulties on this show today.
Ooh, have we ever?
We recorded the entire show already with Ella, so it was professionally produced. Let's put it that way.
Sort of.
And then we recognized that since due to an update on our system, it recorded no audio. So now it is we're stretching on a little later in the evening. Yeah. Ella has to peace out. So now it's back to just you and I doing this tonight.
Yes. And we'll shorten up some of this. For example, I'm not going to do a full situational rundown on what you're going to hear here, but trust me, it'll be good. We have a massive court decision that has come through that affects the state of New Mexico. So we're going to get into details on that. And it's crazy, but it is interesting. And so we'll get to that, and we're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff as well. Do you remember what some of these things are?
I do. We're going to talk about Trump with his meeting with Putin and Zelensky, and kind of just the fact that, are the media ever going to give any props at all to Trump for his efforts or not? We're definitely talking about that.
And then we'll also talk about the mayor's race. We're going to hit that too, and the money in the mayor's race and things of that nature. But first, of course, you're going to start with mail.
Yes, we got a lot of mail, which we appreciate on the last show, which we're talking about the shortage of doctors in New Mexico and kind of the gaslighting that's going behind it, based on an editorial that was in the Albuquerque Journal last week, and just trying to blindside us and try to fool us into thinking what's actually happening. Well, Dane Colson wrote in and said, Mark is exactly right. We run an independent medical clinic here in New Mexico. The issue is clearly the trial attorneys sucking the lifeblood out of the state. We have the second highest medical malpractice insurance rate in the country. Doctors on the East Coast pay less than we do. As long as they run the state legislature, the problem will persist.
Meaning lawyers.
Right.
Go ahead, yep.
The problem will persist. Do we really expect them to pass laws and craft policy that will curtail the financial goldmine they have created for themselves? Look at how many of our rep senators are attorneys in this field, and they are in the powerful posts in state government where the issue is controlled. They have captured the state. It's that simple. Now they just lie and deflect about the cause of the doctor shortage. It's difficult and sickening to watch the abuse. It's unjust and immoral. So.
And we talk about this all the time, and it is simply that you have a situation where it's not just lawyers going and taking advantage of people in this state. It is your healthcare which ends up in the tank because of it. We don't have enough doctors. You end up waiting 6, 8, 9 months because of this, and nothing seems to change. And what was so offensive to us, and the reason we did the whole last show at the beginning of it all about this, was because Brian Egoff, the former Speaker of the House, also a lawyer, went and wrote this whole screed in the Albuquerque Journal talking about how the real problem in this state is that you have corporate interests that are keeping people from getting good health care, when everyone knows that's not true. And so that's why we stood up and talked about it. So hopefully you will check that out. It is definitely worth hearing. So very cool. Thanks for the email, though. It was perfectly stated by someone who lives it every single day.
Yeah, and make sure if you want to send in more comments to like and subscribe. Those are the comments that we actually get directed to us to read. So please make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. And if you want to drop us an email, you can do that at info@nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com. Okay, let's move on to this appeal that came down basically in the 9th hour today on Tuesday.
This was on Tuesday. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of you remember back in 2024, and actually the vote happened, I think, in 2023 in the state legislature. There was a 7-day waiting period for law-abiding citizens to wait for themselves to get a firearm. Okay, so you pass the background check right away. You're fine, but you got to wait another 7 days. That was passed through the legislature. And at the time, everybody's like, how in the world is this constitutional? Well, it turns out that it wasn't actually constitutional. There was a lawsuit filed by Samuel Ortega and Rebecca Scott. Okay, this worked its way up and through the chain, and eventually we got a decision, and it happened on Tuesday. And for those of you who did not want to see that 7-day waiting period continue, it has been overturned. And here is the key paragraph.
We disagree and reverse and remand. Cooling off periods infringe on the Second Amendment by preventing the lawful acquisition of firearms. Cooling off periods do not fit into any historically grounded exceptions to the right to keep and bear arms and burden conduct within the Second Amendment scope. In this preliminary posture, we conclude that the New Mexico Waiting Period Act is likely an unconstitutional burden on the Second Amendment rights of its citizens. We also conclude the other preliminary injunction factors are met and that plaintiffs are entitled to an injunction.
Okay, so here's the thing about this decision that is so important, and we've talked about this before. The New Mexico State Legislature does this all the time. And if you actually watch legislative hearings, you will be shocked at what comes up. And I'll tell you, you have a senator, especially on the Judiciary Committee, and that is Senator Joe Cervantes. He is somebody who knows the Constitution and knows what is in direct violation of the Constitution. He's a Democrat. He's not even a Republican. And oftentimes you'll sit here and listen to him say, yeah, this is not going to pass muster. It's not going to survive. And this is something he talks about regularly because he hates to see this sort of thing happen. So the 7-day waiting period is a great example of that. It's another law that they pass, which has no chance to survive. And yet, we pass it anyway. And if you go watch some of these legislative sessions, you will be shocked to see the lack of knowledge that our legislators have of the Constitution. Because what ends up happening here is they take laws from other states, and what you get these activists that come to our legislators and say, here, try to introduce this. It was written in a different state, but just try to get it passed in New Mexico. I watched it happen last year. I watched it happen in judiciary. And then you saw Cervantes say, you can't do that. That's in violation of the New Mexico Civil Rights Act. And all of a sudden, the legislator who put it up was embarrassed, and she should have been, because she just took a bill from someone who offered it up and had no clue that it was in direct violation. So you see these things happen in this state, and you go, we can't let this sort of thing continue, but yet it does. And every year there's an assault weapons ban that comes up in the state of New Mexico, which is not an assault weapons ban. I mean, it includes all different sorts of firearms that women use for self-protection, and those would be banned. It's completely unconstitutional. They send it up every year, and they see it happen time after time.
Yeah, and you wonder, like, do people just, do some of these legislators just not have access to the New Mexico Constitution or to our Constitution? Like,
they don't care.
I mean,
yeah.
I think that's just a disservice. If you're going to be voted into something, I mean, at the very least, you could run it through a software program that would tell you, is this in conflict with the U.S. or the New Mexico Constitution?
They're hoping for a favorable judge, is my guess, or a panel of favorable judges.
So you're telling me that you think that half the time these people just do this and they actually are completely oblivious, or that you think they're knowledgeable and they know that this bill that they've written or copied or whatever have submitted.
Here's the thing. Yeah,
you think that they know it's in direct conflict with the Constitution.
Here's what I think. I think they have been able to operate in an environment where they don't get called out and humiliated for being incompetent at their job. We don't have a media that has the wherewithal or the bandwidth anymore to go after people and say, oh my gosh, this representative presented this thing that was in direct violation to the New Mexico Constitution. Like there's no shame anymore. There's no shame because there's no consequences. So because if they don't have consequences and they go and can propose anything as ludicrous as it may be, and they don't ever get pushback, and they don't get called onto the carpet for it by their own voters or by the media, they'll just keep doing it, and they'll be shameless in doing it. And so the ignorance is in the shamelessness, or the shamelessness is in the ignorance, right? Whichever is how it goes, it's still how it works. It's incredible.
Well, we should find maybe the best hits, the greatest hits of some of these meetings, and we'll clip them before their next elections.
Hold on. No, that's No, here's what the problem with that is that you got to sit through them. And I'm telling you, it is like fingernails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
You watch some of these things. Now, we have some great legislators. We do some really smart people. There are plenty of them, and some from both parties that are smart. They really are. I'm not saying everybody's like this, but I'm saying that there is this thought that there is no accountability, and there's no real sense of pride to say, I am not going to present something that is not honorable to the people I represent. And they just let it happen time after time. So one thing we talked about 3 weeks ago was there was actually a New Mexico state senator who was honest about the gun bills that come up in front of our legislature. She actually had the temerity to sit in a committee meeting, basically a remote committee meeting. They go around the state and they have these little committee meetings. And she stood up and said something that was hilarious because it was dead on honest.
And she is a Democrat, by the way. Let's keep that in mind as well. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like this was a Republican that was calling this stuff out.
Oh, absolutely. It was Senator Cedillo Lopez. And here is what she had to say.
I really appreciate the gun law update. And I don't know how to say this exactly, but we always introduce these unconstitutional bills.
Well, actually, I don't agree with that. So I'm sorry.
Well, the reason again, we have different experiences in the Senate and the House, but at least it comes before committees that I'm on. We get these bills and it's like they're so obviously unconstitutional. Of course, I'm not on judiciary. So anyway, I'm like, oh my God.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are, Senator. You're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it's so true. I mean, this just lines out exactly what we're talking about. So that's why when the 7-day waiting period comes up in front of the 10th Circuit, they're like, are you crazy? This is not, you can't do this. But this is part of a broader pattern that our legislature engages in, which is they go out, they pass laws, either they take laws from other states and try to reuse them, or they take laws that are poorly written and clearly unconstitutional. And they would do well to listen to people like Senator Cedillo Lopez or Senator even Cervantes down south, and just stop putting these things up that infringe on people's Second Amendment rights. We're a very high gun ownership state because we have a lot of people that hunt and we have a lot of people that use them for self-protection, and they do so legally. And most often the laws in which they are trying to pass affect those people more than anybody else. We're not passing laws that are ramping up penalties on those who have guns illegally. We should absolutely be doing that.
Right. Agreed. Which we've talked about a lot. So, okay, well, good. So good news on that as far as that law not going all the way through. Let's move on, though. Let's talk a little bit about the Albuquerque mayor's race. There was a article that came out in the Journal that was really talking about where all the candidates now stand as far as their fundraising dollars.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. If you kind of take a look at this, you'll see that Mayor Keller obviously is dominating the space because he has been able to receive a bulk of his money coming from the public funds, the public campaign funds, which, in a nutshell, just so as a reminder for those folks, he had to get somewhere around 3,800 signatures along with a $5 contribution to be able to get that public financing. And he was able to do that and secure that. So that's why he has so much money. He's got roughly a little over $757,000 now in his coffer, which is quite a bit compared to Luis Sanchez and Daniel Chavez as well, who basically have about $150,000 and $100,000 in their campaign.
Yeah. So a few things on this that are interesting. First of all, Keller's numbers and the way this works is this: because Keller got the signatures that Christy's talking about and the $5 donations, he basically gets $750K. Everybody else, okay. Now Keller can't raise any more money into that right through his campaign. Okay, he can't do that, but he can raise money into a PAC and use that as well. Okay, so now the PAC can't directly be run by Keller; it's got to be run by people who want to help him, but they can't have direct contact with the campaign. You know how that all goes. So basically, he's got $750K. And the reason that Keller supported, I think, and a lot of these incumbents support public financing is because it's an incumbent protection project. It is that the most well-known candidate oftentimes can get that $3,500, $3,700 number with those $5 donations, and that immediately gives Keller a massive financial advantage right out of the chute here, okay? But there are things that you can glean from this, and I think, number one, you'll see his opponents close in on that money amount as we go through the next few months, meaning Darren White will end up raising probably $400,000 or $500,000. He's not going to raise $700,000 probably, would be my guess. He'll raise somewhere in the $400,000 to $500,000 range if I had to guess.
And so I just feel like it's going to come down to Darren White, Luis Sanchez, and obviously Keller in a runoff. That's what I think is going to end up happening. It's going to come down to one of those two and Keller in a runoff. Yeah,
that's true, and I think that's probably true. I think
that's my guess.
But I will say that the numbers aren't real, but there's not a ton of fundraising going on here. I was honestly surprised at these numbers. I thought the numbers would be a little stronger across the board. I thought, Keller, you can't really tell. But the others, I thought, would be in the $400,000 or $500,000 range. That's where you'd like to see things. And then things would ramp up. But again, the big fundraising season too, for even a mayor's race, is still ramping up here. And that's going to happen in September and October.
Well, yeah, because early voting, by the way, starts in absentee starts on October 7th. Early voting starts on October 18th for this race.
That's pretty early.
So it is coming, right around the corner. I would just say that whoever your candidate of choice is, you probably don't want to waste any more time in the fact of if you can give them some support, it's valuable to tap in and be able to do that. But I just think I liked showing this article because I think you look at the article and you think, oh, Keller's in the lead. There's no way anybody's going to catch up. Which financially, that's true. He does have a lot of money. I just doubt the actual support is there as much as it is for some of these other two candidates.
Well, and again, that's why we bring up the fact that the public financing is the incumbent protection fund, because it absolutely favors an incumbent every time. So now he gets a massive financial advantage. Why? Because he's more well known and he's got the whole campaign infrastructure in place from 2 prior races that he's already won. So that's why he supports these things. And it's very difficult, unless you're really well known, to be able to go get 3,800 signatures or 3,700 or whatever it is in the city of Albuquerque along with a $5 donation.
Yeah, it's harder than it looks.
That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And he knows that. And so when they supported that, there's no question that happens all the time. And these public finance things, everybody says, oh, public financing is the way you should go and, get money out of politics. It doesn't get money out of politics at all.
Yeah,
as a matter of fact, because
seems,
you can still run a PAC through this as well.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, honestly, they voted to even up the dose or whatever you want to call it, up the percentage amount that you can be given as a mayoral candidate if you for public financing. That was voted, I believe, in 21 or 22. They upped that rate. So I think it's just interesting. I hope that people don't just say, okay, look at the amount of money that Keller has in his coffers and assumes that that's done. Right. I hope that you sit there and evaluate, has he been a good mayor for our city?
Yeah.
And if he has not been a good mayor,
well, here's the one thing. Here's the one thing that's interesting.
We need to vote differently.
Well, yeah, but I agree with you totally. But I was talking to a friend of mine this afternoon, and he said, here's the one problem Keller has. And this is the problem.
The one? There's like one?
Well, no, there's a million. But
okay,
fair point.
Clarifying.
Fair point. So he said, this is the big problem Keller has. When you have 100% name ID and everybody has an opinion of you, all the money in the world is not going to change it. Okay, so that's what's interesting, is that you can spend all the money in the world, but everybody has already solidified their opinion on Tim Keller. And the vast majority of them don't like him.
Okay,
so the extra money, while great, and again, it's $700,000. Let's not go crazy here. You're not going to get that far on $700,000 in a big campaign and buying TV ads in the biggest TV market in the state. It's not going to last that long. So I will say this advantage on money with him, A, is not that important. And then B, when everybody knows what they think of you already, some ad about you with soft music talking about how great you're doing, when they look out their window and see there are massive problems, going to be tough to get by.
Okay, I agree with you, Mark, but I have to play devil's advocate on this because I will come back to this over and over again. And it's one of the biggest reasons we do this show is I still think people have a hard time correlating crime, homelessness, lack of jobs staying here in the city due to leadership. Because you talk to people and they will be like, well, this isn't the mayor's fault and this isn't the, whatever. And I'm just thinking, well, whose fault is it?
I disagree. I think
you've got plenty of voters that don't correlate our leadership with bad decisions.
Okay, that's fine.
And high crime.
I agree. There are those people, just not most of them. And in fact, if you look at his numbers, he's upside down by 20 points. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's a problem.
I get it, and I hope that
people that are upside down 20 points do not win elections. I'm not saying he's going to lose. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I'm saying people that are upside down 20 points don't win. You don't.
Listen. I hope you are correct because I do think this city needs some real change. I really believe that we need some change desperately. Yeah. So obviously get your money into the people that you want to support for this race. Again, early voting starts in October. We're going to find out when the debate is because I think that's going to be fascinating. I mean,
yeah, well, you're going to watch just a feeding frenzy.
Oh, it's going to be interesting. So, Of course, we'll be sitting there with our popcorn because we live for those kind of things.
We do live for debates.
We'll keep you posted on that. But anyway, so that was our take on that.
Okay. I want to talk to you about a little different issue here. And it's one that does affect New Mexico, and we're part of the story yet again. And it's a tragic story. There is a truck driver named Harjinder Singh. Okay. He was driving an 18-wheeler in Florida on August 12th. Okay. He was in the right lane going down the interstate and inexplicably took a left-hand turn to whip a U-turn in the middle of the interstate. Okay. So think about this. Think about when you go to pass somebody and you're in the left-hand lane on an interstate, and imagine a 18-wheeler just cutting straight in front of you, cutting you off, giving you no chance to stop and trying to pull a U-turn. It's something that nobody of any sort of competence who understands road travel in the United States would ever do.
Right. You would never be expecting that.
Never. You would never be expecting it, right? He does it, okay? A minivan full of a family runs right into the bottom of it, and they all die. And it's devastating. Well, Mr. Singh came to this country illegally in 2018. He then went and applied for his CDL in California and Washington State. We'll get into that. But let's just say he did not get the kind of results that would justify giving him a CDL, which Christy will have those numbers in 1 second. But here is what this looked like as he was driving. And he just makes the U-turn right here, and then there goes the minivan right in. It's beyond, it's not irresponsible. It's having no business being on the road with a CDL driving an 18-wheeler, just cutting across an interstate. And this poor family had no chance.
Yeah.
Absolutely no chance to survive. And so
even
this
his
is
expression,
something,
it's like he's
he just clueless, like totally clueless.
Yeah.
And so we want to show you what the issues were. And this is from the U.S. Department of Transportation with some details on how did this guy get a CDL and could this have been stopped? And yes, it could have been stopped. In fact, it should have been stopped in the state of New Mexico. And Christy has that.
It says during FMCSA's interview with the driver, investigators administered an English language proficiency or an ELP assessment in accordance with FMCSA guidance. The driver failed that assessment, providing correct responses to just 2 of 12 verbal questions and only accurately identifying 1 of 4 highway traffic signs.
So one quick thing before you keep going. Remember what we're talking about here. Somebody who can't speak the language and can't read our signs is driving a semi. You have to have a special qualification to do this. Okay,
so this is the preliminary findings that they've found so far. On July 15th of 2023, Washington State issued the driver a regular full-term commercial driver's license. And basically, asylum seekers or individuals without legal status are not eligible for this type of license. And again, we have informed you this man was here illegally, so who knows why he was issued this CDL. Then again, on July 23rd, 2024, California issued the driver a limited term CDL license. Again, now FMCSA is investigating the issuance of this license to determine whether it was issued in accordance with federal regulations. I'm assuming they're going to find out it was not. And then on July 3rd, just a little over a month ago, 2025, the New Mexico State Police conducted a roadside inspection of the driver this guy was driving on our highways on July 3rd. Speeding. The state police pulled him over, issued him a speeding ticket, but there's no indication that this English language assessment test was administered, this ELP.
Okay, and that by law has to be done. Okay, that started in June of this year. The federal law is, listen, if you've got somebody who you suspect can't either read the road signs or can't speak English well enough to be able to be a functional driver. It's like, there's certain places in this world I couldn't drive right now because I don't know. I don't know the road signs. I don't know what side of the road to be on. I don't have any clue. Right. And so especially in a semi, right? In our state police, who I think do an incredible job, but for whatever reason, missed the boat here. Because if they had looked at this and said, wait a minute, we need to assess this ELP, they would have stopped him. Mm-hmm. He never would have gotten to Florida and wiped that family out. And the reason we bring up this story is, first off, because it does affect the state of New Mexico and we're part of the story. But even bigger issue in all of this is the fact that this is happening more and more. We're starting to hear about these more and more across the country where people are driving with a CDL that shouldn't have a CDL and they can't function. And we've lived through 4 years of don't worry about the border. Everything's fine. No problem at all. Don't worry about it. It matters. This all matters. And you can't drive these trucks without the proper training. And you have to be able to speak the language and read the signs. It's not racist to say that. And you see when you go and you compromise people's safety in service to what? Some agenda? Some woke agenda that nobody understands the benefit of? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, very dire consequences on top of all of this. So, the Secretary Sean Duffy, he tweeted the same thing, that he's talking about this cannot happen again. He's talking about FMCSA is launching an investigation into both the driver and the White Hawk carrier, who is the business owner of the semi. And basically, he just goes into exactly what we just talked about, the big findings here of this man being issued licenses in 2 different states, and then pulled over in the state of New Mexico and, not given this ESL.
Yeah, and he says
test.
States must follow the rules.
Right.
If they had, this driver never would have been behind the wheel and Press's lives would not have been lost. The failures here are despicable. Non-enforcement and radical immigration policies have turned the trucking industry into a lawless frontier, resulting in unqualified drivers improperly acquiring licenses to operate 40-ton vehicles. This is a danger to anybody on the roads. If you've been on I-40 in this state, you know it. You know how dangerous it can be because you have so many big rigs. And you depend on those big rigs to know the rules of the road. Because most of the time, they do. They're the ones who know them better than anybody, right? But it's just devastating when they don't.
Yeah,
because when they don't, people die. And it's not them, ever.
Yeah, and
they
of course,
sit there and go, they get a little bump, and that's it.
Yeah, you just think about your children who are out there driving. Of course, I do that. I don't even let our kids drive on I-40, and they think I'm a helicopter parent. But it's
you are, but I love it.
I am a helicopter parent, but there's so many semis on that road anyway, and I feel like until you have some more experience driving on the highway, you get enough hours under your belt, so to speak. I don't even like to drive on 40, if I'm being honest. I'm not the best driver on 40 as well. So let's shift gears a little bit. We're going over now to Trump, Putin, and in this whole, he's trying to broker this peace deal, right? So are the media behind him? Do they get fired up? Are they like, go Trump, let's end this war, let's save some lives?
Well, forget the media. We've talked about this same issue a million times, which is if Trump's on one side, the media and in the far left will take the other side every single time. So it doesn't matter. So now Trump literally doing more than I think any other president would do or definitely has done to this point, trying to bring this war to an end. Now, even if you don't think he's going to be successful, or even if, you hate Trump, you still got to say, okay, I hope it works. I hope he's successful, because there are literally thousands of people. It's not an exaggeration. Thousands of people are dying every week. Nobody wants that. Nobody. So you start to see the reaction from the media and from the White House on this, because I think you don't necessarily see that same thought process.
Right. So let's just take a quick look at Caroline Leavitt. She basically just lets the media have it for how they've been covering the situation when it comes to Trump.
Of this entire process, much of the left-wing media has been actively rooting against the president of the United States in the pursuit of peace. The media relentlessly attacked President Trump and claimed he suffered a, quote, major defeat for not immediately emerging with a final agreement, even though he said heading into that meeting, this was a meeting to listen and to understand how to move the ball forward. The so-called experts in the foreign policy establishment, whose record is nothing but endless wars, trillions of wasted taxpayer dollars, and dead Americans, have the nerve to try and lecture President Trump, who has solved 7 global conflicts in 7 months.
Okay, so I think she's kind of laying it out there a little bit. So yeah, which okay, now in response, like you're wondering maybe you've missed something. You didn't see some of the media coming after with some of these attacks. So we pulled this other clip for you. This is a global affairs analyst from CNN, and she is just she's just shocked that Trump is actually going to talk to both Zelensky and Putin to try to put this deal together. Like, she doesn't understand.
The fact that he feels he's got to check in with Putin right away, and that just as this meeting is taking place, we get news that Putin is saying, by the way, no NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine. That is unacceptable. Still feels like Trump needs Putin's approval in a way that's got to be very disturbing to Zelensky sitting there. But of course, Zelensky was a good actor. He's playing it cool. He's not biting on any of the questions he got. And hopefully what's going to happen is they're going to go into this meeting with European officials, and the Europeans are saying, we need to put these troops on the ground inside Ukraine, and it's not Vladimir Putin's business.
Okay. Look, I admit, I am not the world's foremost foreign policy negotiator, but I'm pretty sure that Trump does need Putin's approval. He's a principal in the conflict. You don't get to just wag your finger and tell him the deal and move on. That's the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. Just like Zelensky is a principal in the deal, you got to bring them both together. Now, if all you care about, Kimberly, is politics, then you can just wag your finger at Putin, do a dog and pony show in the Oval Office, and then when it doesn't work, say you tried. That may be what Kimberly Dozier does. That isn't what Trump is doing. By all accounts, he cares deeply about bringing this war to an end.
Yeah, I mean, the war's been going on now for almost 4 years is where we're at now. So I think he's been pretty clear that he wants peace in this situation. He doesn't feel like it was a war that was started under his watch. He claims it would not have happened under his watch if he had been president. And now all he wants to do is make it end, right? So there's going to have to be some deals that are made on that. Now, what's interesting is that his approval rating is surging after this Putin summit. So this is a Newsweek article we pulled for you guys. And it says, according to polling by Insider Advantage, 54% of voters said they now approved of the president, while 44% disapproved. So it's actually, he's climbed up. Even in just the last couple of weeks, because they polled in July. This is a new poll for just now.
I think voters look at this and say, yeah, he's trying. Good job. Nice work. But it just makes the comments from Dozier that much more ridiculous.
Well, and also I think you have to keep in mind that the majority of the country want this war to end. They just want it to be done.
Right. Well, agreed. But that's what I'm saying. When the hate for Trump outstrips the need to save lives, it just is so ludicrous. And so you just watch it and it just doesn't make any sense. And so it is just always whatever Trump's doing, you're on the opposite side. So if Trump's trying to bring war to an end, you're like, well, war, we don't want to bring this to an end. It makes no sense. And you saw the same thing, and we have new numbers on what's going on in D.C. And it was the same deal there, where it's like, how do you object to bringing in the National Guard and bringing down crime in D.C.? It's ridiculous. It's a stupid statement to say that you do, and to call him a dictator for trying to end all this, right? And to try to clean up the nation's capital. Well, now the DC Police Union has put out the numbers. What's going on with crime?
And so this is just in the last 7 days, right? So this is a very short snippet of time. Robbery is down 46%. ADW is down 6%. Carjacking down 83%. Car theft, 21%. Violent crime is down 22%. Property crime is down 6%. All crimes are down 8%. So all the crimes have decreased since the National Guard has been hitting the streets. So, I think is it the change that can take place forever? No, nobody's claiming that, right? It's a, hey, listen, this is the front door to our country. He took a step to say, listen, we're 500 police officers short in Washington, D.C. We're not going to get that anytime soon. So we need to take some steps to start getting our city cleaned up. And I just think it's interesting when you hear people that are criticizing that, even back here, with our governor putting out the additional support for Albuquerque and Espanola, and people are on both sides saying, what good is this going to do? It's going to do no good. It's not going to do. Who knows? If it's done properly, it should deter crime. You should have more eyes out there watching what's happening. You should be freeing up some of these police officers. Now, does that happen? I don't know. We're still following up on that. And as soon as we know more, we will be happy to share it with you guys. But to see that these numbers are working in D.C., I think let's let him do this. Let's see how, we need something to be working.
It's another one of these 80-20 issues. It is an 80-20 issue, by the way. It's another one of these 80-20 issues that absolutely you run to the other side because you hate Trump, and he's doing the right thing. So as long as he keeps staking out his territory on the 80, none of this doesn't work. Now it doesn't mean that the midterms are going to go his way and everything else. They may well not, because that's a really steep hill. But overall, I think it makes a ton of sense. So we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out.
Okay, so some changes happening. If Trump stays on board on this, he would like to see some changes done at the Smithsonian. So there's a couple of exhibits that we have pulled to talk about in specific where there's kind of a revisionist history. Like there is just kind of a different telling of maybe what some of these important times in our history were all about.
Well, so when I watched the news story on this, and I'd see all the, you'd see everybody just up in arms. Trump is going after the Smithsonian. Like he's trying to change history. Is he? Or is he doing something different? So we decided to kind of search around a little bit and figure out what kind of stuff are we talking about where you look at the exhibit and you go, okay, I got a problem with this. Or why do you have a problem with it? Or do you have a problem with it? Well, there's a couple different examples. Number one, if you check out the Title IX exhibit at the Smithsonian, it is amazing. So I want you to just read this. Now, many of you know Title IX was passed in 1972 to allow women more access to sports. Okay, especially at the collegiate level where they didn't have the same sort of access that men did. And so this Title IX did a very good job of that. But listen to how it is described in the Smithsonian exhibit on Title IX. Again, this is in 1972.
Okay, so it says this exhibition marks the 50th anniversary of Title IX. Federal legislation championed by Congresswoman Patsy Mink and signed into law by President Richard Nixon in 1972. The act unintentionally boosted long-standing efforts to open male-dominated arenas of sports.
Not unintentionally, but right. Okay, keep on going.
Okay, yeah. Even as Title IX protections have been expanded over the years, most recently under the Biden administration, athletes continue to face sexism, racism, transphobia, and other forms of bigotry. The stories of athletes before and after Title IX are part of a larger narrative of the struggle for equality in the United States.
Okay. And then here is one of the pictures that comes with this.
Yeah, and if you can look into this, I mean, if you're not looking, you should get on our YouTube channel and check this out. It is... It just has nothing to do with Title IX. I mean, this was not even an issue in 1972 when we were trying to make it an even playing field, or at least give the opportunity for women to participate in a sport that did, the way it was explained to me too back when I was in high school is if there was a sport that was provided for a male team, there needed to be a similar sport offered for women.
Yeah.
So
good examples: football for men, field hockey for women.
Right. So things of that nature: baseball for men, softball for women. That kind of thing, right? So it had nothing to do with sexism. I mean, with racism or all these gender.
The trans movement of trying to take things and really usher in men into women's sports. That's what Biden's effort tried to do.
Right.
I mean, there's no question.
Which actually is stripping the rights of Title IX.
Exactly. It goes the opposite way.
Right. It does the opposite thing. So just looking at this quick little fact check that was put together, it says here, you see Nixon, 1972, signing this Title IX, right, which is to expand opportunities for women. And then it goes into, and this just really shows the impact. So you had less than 10% of females, by the way, before Title IX, less than 10% of females were in sports. Today, we have 43% of women participating in collegiate sports. And so it's just like it's blurring these lines. It's trying to strip away what the original context of this law was about, why it was established, a civil rights law for women that basically is being morphed into something twisted and not what it was actually intended to be. And so I have zero problem with Trump or whoever coming in and saying, let's get this thing straight, because you have kids that go in there on school field trips. You have people that go, I mean, we were just at the Smithsonian 2 weeks ago, right? We love the Smithsonian. But what you hope is when your kids are reading all the displays that they're not being misaligned or misinformed about what actually took place.
Okay, well, let's take a different subject. Let's go to Cuba. Okay, let's do this. This is one of the Central American displays, and I want you to just read this. Now, for many of you, it doesn't take a genius, and again, not a genius over here, but I do know that most of the outflow of what happened in Cuba was the result of people seeking a better life because of the leadership of one person. But I want you to go ahead and read this, see if that one person's name comes up in Cuba that ruled with an iron fist for decades and caused mass immigration to the United States, and rightfully so.
Oh, well,
right. So we'll see if that person's name is mentioned and see, or see, was it maybe the United States' fault that there were issues in Cuba?
Okay, well, it starts here with seeking democracy and safety. Civil wars, oppressive governments, and natural disasters pushed millions of people to migrate from Latin America and the Caribbean to the United States. Throughout the 1900s, the United States supported foreign governments that favored U.S. businesses and fought communism. Sometimes U.S. foreign policy contributed to the violence and corruption driving people to migrate. The United States backed numerous dictators, including Cuba's Batista and the Dominican Republic's Rafael Trujillo. Cuban, Dominican, and many other Latino communities still feel the effects of war and revolution. Their stories reveal the human cost of immigration and the contradictions of U.S. foreign policy.
Okay, this is idiotic, right? I mean, they literally blame the United States for this.
Right.
And they never they mentioned Batista, which was a mistake by the United States, no question. But the real issue here, you think it could have been Fidel Castro?
Right.
Do you think we would mention that at all?
Yeah.
That if you go to most Cubans who immigrated from Cuba to the United States over the past, 50 years, that would be the main factor as to why. And yet this is what you see in the Smithsonian. So again, what you've seen is over decades, groups like this, or organizations like this have gone and put their own spin on history, which is no history at all. And so at a certain point, holding them to account and saying, wait a minute, if you're going to take federal dollars, you're not going to lie about this country, and you're not going to run the country down and say things that just clearly aren't true.
I know. I think what's so shocking about this is that exactly what you're saying is like it's federal money that builds these museums. Again, this is the gateway to our country. Hundreds of thousands of visitors go to the Smithsonian because it's free. It's all these museums around this big area called the Mall, if you haven't been to DC. And you can walk into these museums. Our kids love them. We love them. And it's like this big education on all different kinds of topics. And if this is the gateway into our country, kind of our part of our proud part of being an American, and we're just not even telling the truth about our own history and kind of bashing ourselves in the process, I'm lost. And I don't even know how the curators of this put this stuff together.
Well, I agree. And we're not saying that you don't tell the ugly history of the United States.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, you should.
We should absolutely talk about some of the ugliest slavery, for instance. I've never thought that should be sugar-coated whatsoever. It absolutely is part of our history and should be absolutely talked about. But stuff like this where you're either twisting the story of like Title IX, you're changing the course of what that was even established to be.
Yeah.
Leaving Castro out of the Cuban migration. Come on, give me a break.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't obviously alive during the Kennedys and the situation with Castro. That was happening in the 60s when they were fighting that guy. So, I mean, it's been around for a long time, and I can't believe it's a mismark on this. But I think we should end on the fun little clip from Ronnie D.
You want to end with Ronnie D?
I think we should end with Ronnie D. Okay. I think we should leave these people on a little positive, just a little funny quip.
Well, people wonder, and we obviously were fortunate enough to spend a little time with Ronnie D in the campaign. And when you run into people across the country, they're like, how does he do it? How does he do such a good job in Florida? And I think he finally answered that question, and it's a little bit simpler than you may think.
People ask me like, Florida, you guys are leading this. You just how you do it. I was like, as governor of Florida, I get this great cheat code. All I got to do is look to New York, Illinois, California, and then do the opposite.
He drops the mic.
He does the wave.
He does the drop the mic and see you later. I think that was it was a very well stated answer.
Yeah, well, he does love it. And I think, it's so funny when you watch it, and when he ran for president, it's hard because it's I think so much of running and succeeding in some of these things, and even in smaller races too, is being comfortable in what you're doing. And I think what you found with DeSantis was it was getting comfortable on the national stage was a little tougher than it was on the local. Like in Florida, he's got it wired because he knows what he's doing, and he gets in there and he's in a comfortable environment where he's just like, yeah, I know. Like every decision he makes seems to be one that is simple. It seems a simple choice. And when you're doing, when things are going your way and you're doing a good job, I think the decision seems simple. And when it's not working, every decision you struggle with. Right. I mean, you're just like, oh, my God. And you know this in our own lives where, you're on a roll and you're like, even the big decision seems simple. Right. And then there are those other things along the way where you're like, oh, you know what? That just get difficult and you struggle with them. So he just seems to me that when he's in that Florida mode, he's like, man, everything makes sense.
Yeah, he's got it down. It's a good role for him. He's a good governor. He's doing a good job.
Yep.
Well, thanks you guys for spending some time with us. We appreciate it. Remember to like, subscribe, make comments. If you want to support our podcast, you can do that a couple different ways. You can make some donations. That's how we survive on this podcast. So you can make those on our email, on our website, which is nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com. Please sign up for our email too. I promise we won't sell your information. We don't spam you. It's just the way that we make sure that you still get all of our shows, because some of the platforms, if they don't like what we talk about, they kind of hide them from you. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss a show, sign up for our emails. That's the only thing that we'll email you about is a news that directly impacts Mark and I personally, or things about this show. That's it. That's all we do. So thanks so much for spending time with us. We appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you back here on Sunday.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.
The No Doubt About It podcast is a Choose Adventure Media production. See you next time on No Doubt About It.
There is no doubt about it.